Hello everybody, DM Gashbad here, and we are back with Zombicide Black Plague. It has been a while. I actually played this game last summer, but the zombie population got a little bit bigger than I expected, and it's had to wait until now when I was able to paint the last couple of models to get this to you guys. We are playing Quest B9, Help Kanta Slaus. This is a free scenario downloadable from the Zombicide website. It is the last 4-player medium scenario that there is, so after this I'm going to have to do something else. Either paint more survivors or go on to the hard missions. As always, I'm using the Plogsburg Petitioners, my group of Nelly, Silas, Samson, and Baldric. I'll continue to use these characters until one of them falls in battle, and then I'll have to pick somebody else. These are, of course, Warhammer models standing in for the Zombicide models. I'm also substituting Warhammer models for the zombies themselves. Here we see a sample zombie, a shadow ghoul representing the runners, a plague bearer representing the fatties, a necromancer, and a converted abomination based on a chaos spawn. Here's the board all set up and ready to go. There's a lot of moving parts in this scenario. Our goal is the vault room off to the right, and the only way we can get there is the big room in the north. The big room is accessible by the blue door, and you have to find the blue objective before you can open that up. The blue objective could be one of the 7 on the board, or it could be one of the 2 we've set aside. I get one of them every time I eliminate a necromancer. The idea behind this quest is that the winter god Kanta Slaus is all set to deliver presents to good people and curses to naughty people. The necromancers are on the naughty list, so they're kind of mad about this, so they're trying to raid Kanta Slaus' workshop, which you can access through the vault door. If a necromancer activates inside that vault, we automatically lose. The objectives that aren't the key to the blue door are gifts from Kanta Slaus, so they give us 5 experience, and we get to take a vault artifact. Now, I'm still only using the core set, so I'm only using the 2 artifacts that come with that. Once we run out of those, then I just get a random equipment card. Once I get the blue objective, then, of course, I can go into that big room at the top, but also necromancers change their behavior, and they try to go into that vault room instead of towards the nearest exit. The way we win the game is to get all 4 survivors into the vault with no zombies there. But that doesn't win us the game by itself. Once we're all there, survivors can spend an action to send a gift to any of the survivors, including themselves. That gives them a random equipment card, or they can spend 2 actions to send a curse to a necromancer, which allows them to move the necromancer in any direction they choose. Once each survivor has spent a total of 6 actions distributing gifts and curses, then we win. Hopefully that all makes sense. My guys are set up in the very center of the board. Let's go save Christmas. If I find the blue objective relatively early, I think this game could go pretty quick. So I've tried to plan my route taking me by the greatest number of objectives. In this case, there are 4 objectives on the left, only 3 on the right. I'm going to go to the left. And I think my fastest route is going up and to the left. That does mean later on I'm going to have to brave the southern route when there are more zombies coming from that lower spawn point, but that's a problem for future me. For now, Samson the dwarf is going to take 2 actions to move up to that first door on the center left, and then he's going to try and open the door, which he fails to do with his hammer. Nelly is up next, armed with a single short sword. She gets a free move action, takes another regular move action, and then fails to open that door twice. This is all looking kind of familiar. Okay, on to Baldric, who has a short sword and the Monoblast spell. Just like everybody else, moves twice, fails to open the door. Finally, I'm going to activate Silas the elf. Silas has a short bow and a short sword, 2 move actions to move forward. I'm taking a risk trying to open this door, but I do it anyway and I succeed. I have so much trouble opening doors that I feel like I can't pass up an opportunity to do it, even though if I spawn a runner in that first room, it's going to jump out and bite me immediately afterwards. But I don't get a runner, instead I get a fatty in the first room and a fatty in the second room. Not great, but could be worse. On to the zombie phase. The 2 fatties move forward, and we spawn in the top left first. That's what I've decided the number 1 spawn point is. That gives us an extra fatty activation, which would be a big problem if we weren't in the blue experience level. We go on to the next spawn point in the upper right, and we get a double spawn, so we're down to the south. We get 1 walker and 2 walkers for a total of 3 walkers in that zone. Back to the heroes, we're going to start with Samson because he's got the hammer. He misses with the first attack against the fatty in our zone, but then kills him with his second attack for 1 XP. He doesn't have enough actions to jump in there and kill the next fatty, so he just spends a trade action to give the hammer to Nelly, and he'll take her short sword. Obviously, Nelly is up next. She uses her free move action to move into the zone with the fatty and kills it on her next action. She then searches the room and finds chainmail, which is pretty good. I actually don't want her to get the objective. I have her just leave instead. The reason being is that I know the 2 vault weapons would be better on either Silas or Baldric, so we activate Baldric next. He moves in, takes the objective, 5 XP. It is not the blue objective, but he does get the Inferno spell, which is great, and then he moves back out onto the street. Silas doesn't really want to move out on his own, so he just jumps into that room, searches, finds leather armor, and then moves back out with the rest of his companions. Over to the zombies in the south shuffle forward. The top left spawns 1 runner. In the top right, we get a walker activation, but of course we're still blue, so that doesn't affect anything. And the south gets a runner. Back over to the petitioners, starting with Samson again. He's going to move twice to that door on the left. There's 4 rooms on that big building on the left, and there's 2 objectives. I'd like to crack that open while we're still in blue. Unfortunately, we're still really bad at opening doors, so Samson immediately fails. Nelly tries her key, but it does not work any better. Fails twice to open up the door, and just succeeds making a lot of noise in that zone. Finally, Baldric activates, moves twice over to the same zone, and shows these whippersnappers how it's done opening up the door. So, 4 rooms. I'm going to start with the furthest room first. We get a walker activation. Nice to get these out of the way early. This is actually looking pretty good. The next room up, though, gives us an abomination. I was hoping not to have to deal with an early abomination again. This is going to change how this game is going. Now we go over to the very top room, and we get a necromancer. That doesn't help. We have to draw a spawn card to see who the necromancer shows up with, and we get another abomination. So the abomination shuffles right up to that room in front of us to get right in our way, and then finally we spawn 1 zombie. Well, Baldric does have 1 free magic action, which he uses to blast the head off that 1 lone walker, but this is a bit of an issue. So finally Silas comes up to the rest of the group saying, "Hey, what's going on?" Oh, that's not good. Spends his final action giving Samson his short sword plus the leather armor. Won't help him against any hits from that abomination, but with his Ironhide skill it does make him a little more survivable. So zombie turn, and the abomination and the runner both move into our zone. The rest of the bad guys shuffle up, the zombies in the south gaining an extra zombie as they split paths. For spawns, we get another runner in the top left, a walker in the top right. The south gives us a double spawn, so over to the necromancer spawn zone. That gives us another fatty, and the necromancer gets an additional activation. That means the necromancer joins the party in our zone, which is getting pretty crowded. I have become aware that in the rulebook, it doesn't technically say when you draw a necromancer card, the necromancer gets an activation. It seems to be some weird system where the necromancers actually bank these spawn cards, and then for each one of their activations, they get an extra activation. I find it weird and confusing and unnecessary. I'm just going to do it the regular way. When we draw a necromancer card and there's already a necromancer on the board, he just gets an extra activation. I don't think it particularly matters which way you do it. So back to the heroes, and I don't really have a choice. I don't have enough actions to leave this zone, so I gotta stand and fight, which means I'm gonna get punched by an abomination. Nelly is up first wielding the hammer. She strikes down the necromancer and removes his spawn zone from inside that building. Unfortunately, she then misses the runner twice. We do get an objective for killing off the necromancer though, but it is a red one, no blue objective yet. Samson's next, wielding his 2 short swords, he kills the runner that was giving Nelly so many problems. And with just the abomination left in his zone, he has enough actions to escape and move into the building on the left. Baldric follows him using his 2 actions as before. He then gets a free magic action which he uses to cast Inferno in the room with the fatty, and he immediately obliterates it. That puts him in the yellow experience level, so he gets another action. He doesn't need to use it though because he doesn't want to get that objective. He wants Silas to get that objective because he knows the Orcish crossbow. So instead he's just going to hang out with Samson, and he's going to search, and he finds salted meat. Save that for a nice Christmas charcuterie board. Silas then uses all 3 actions to move to the lower left objective, leaving Nelly all alone with the abomination. Thanks, guys. And we're back to the zombies. Nelly is punched for 1 point of damage, and a runner comes to join her in her zone. The rest of the walkers and the runners continue to shamble forward. The top left spawns another fatty. The top right gets a double spawn, so we're back down to the south where we get another necromancer. Cool, he shows up with 2 fatties and 3 walkers. We're in the yellow now. Hero turn, Nelly's up first again. She would really like to get out of the zone with the abomination, but she kind of has to kill that runner first. Thankfully she does it with her first attack. She then moves into the building with the rest of her companions, thanks in part to her free move action, and she does a search where she finds plenty of arrows. Not terribly helpful. A little bit more helpful is Silas grabs that next objective. Still red, no blue yet, which is kind of disappointing, but he does get the orcish crossbow. He then moves to the room with the rest of his friends and forgets to take a search action. Samson's next. He moved to the north room, takes that objective. That puts him in the yellow. Still a red objective, 4 objectives down, no blue. He gets a hand crossbow, which is not doing anyone any favors. He then moves back to the rest of the party, does a regular search, and finds a greatsword. Baldric activates next. I can't hurt that abomination. I'm going to have him come into the zone, and then we'll all leave together. So for right now, he's just going to search. He finds a shield, which is helpful, and then spends the rest of his actions shuffling equipment around. He goes and takes the chainmail from Nelly. Then he gives the chainmail and shield to Samson, and he takes the leather armor, the 2 short swords, and the hand crossbow, leaving him with just the greatsword. So now Samson has a really nice 3+ armor save with rerolls if he needs them. Again, no help against Abomination, but I think in the future it'll come in handy. Finally, Baldric hands the 2 short swords, the leather armor, and the salted meat back to Nelly. Everyone feeling well equipped now? Okay, great. The zombies move up, the Abomination ambles back into our party's zone, and 2 runners are hanging out right outside our space. The top left spawns a fatty, the top right gets us 2 walkers, and in the south we've got 2 spawn zones because of that necromancer, so we get 2 more walkers and an abomination, so the abomination gets another activation, and it punches a wound off of Silas. Ow. We're going to activate Nelly first, kind of because she needs some XP, so she moves out of that zone with the abomination into the zone with the 2 runners. We've got 2 short swords now, time to carve up some ghouls. We miss twice with our next action, and then we miss twice with our second action, so that's 4 in a row not being able to hit a 4+. Not great, Nelly. Samson's next. He stomps out of the zone with the abomination and then kills the first runner with his greatsword and then manages to kill the last runner. That's not bad because that greatsword, I don't really trust those 3 dice hitting on 5s, but he managed to do pretty well. So good job, Samson. Baldric's next, again moving out of the zone with the abomination, blasts the fatty in the north with his inferno spell, moves down to the south, and then kills off the 2 walkers hanging out there. Silas is next, moves into the zone with Nelly and Samson, and then the crossbow has a range of 2 zones, so he kills off that fatty in the spawn zone. Bad guy turn, all the zombies shuffle forward, including that abomination who continues to stomp after us. Unfortunately, here is where I make a bit of a rules mistake. The necromancer is in a zone where there are 2 paths to the zone with the most noise. For whatever reason, I got it in my head that he's treated like every other zombie, in which case he would try to split, and if he can't split because there aren't enough models, and there's only 1 necromancer model, he would get an extra activation. That's not the way it works. Abominations and necromancers don't get extra activations in this way, you just choose which way they go. I'm going to make this mistake throughout the game, so I'm going to give the necromancers and the abominations a bunch of extra activations when they shouldn't. I'm kind of okay with this rule mistake because I don't think it gives me an advantage. It's probably a disadvantage, though in some cases, like now, it puts this necromancer closer to my line of sights. But I wanted to point it out. Anyway, top left gives us 4 walkers, top right gives us 3 walkers, south gives us a double spawn, so over to the necromancer spawn zone, gives us a fatty and another necromancer, so the old guy puts on a lot of speed this turn. Rounds the corner and finds a very angry wizard staring at him. But it's not the wizard that does him in. We're going to start with Silas, and he's going to shoot with his orcish crossbow, kills the necromancer, removes that extra southern spawn zone. I'm going to have to pass by that. I don't need any more spawns happening over there. Killing this necromancer gets us the last off the board objective. It's still a red, no blue objective. So much for finding that early. It does put Silas in the yellow experience level, and he spends his last 3 actions getting away from that abomination. Baldric's up next. He moves twice to get around the corner, uses his free magic action to blast 2 walkers and a fatty standing right in front of him. He then decides, like an idiot, to try and open up that door. He fails with the first attempt, of course, but then he succeeds with his second. The far room gives us another necromancer, which is no fun. He shows up with 4 walkers to keep him company, and then we get 2 runners in the zone right in front of us. That's not good. Maybe I should have saved that free magic action until after I opened the door. Well, there's nothing Nelly and Samson can really do about that. All we can do is spend all of our actions to get away from that abomination, which we wanted to do in the first place, and stand with Baldric and be sort of a human shield wall, or dwarf shield wall in this case, for those two runners coming at us. So here come all the zombies. The runners move into our zone and attack, and I put them both on Samson. So he's got 2 dice looking for a 3+. He passes one, fails one with the first roll, so I decide to take a chance and use the shield reroll. You don't get to reroll just the fails. You have to reroll all of your armor saves that you take at the same time. Thankfully, with that second roll, I managed to pass both of them, and good job, Samson tanks all the damage. 4 spawns, top left 3 walkers, top right double spawn. So back down to the south, we get 4 walkers and 2 walkers for a total of 6. And the Necromancer zone inside that building in the bottom left gives us a double spawn, so back up to the top we get 2 walkers and then another double spawn, so over to the top right, 3 walkers and 1 runner. Putting a lot of dead flesh on the table. Nelly's next, got to get her out of the blue experience level. She spends her first action to kill off one of the runners in her zone. Second action kills off the second runner. Doing better, Nelly. Free action to move into the zone with all those bad guys, and then she misses completely. Samson's up next, kills off the Necromancer and 2 walkers with his first attack. That's great. Necromancers no longer give out more objective tokens, but we do get to take away the spawn zone that's sitting on top of that objective zone. Don't need that there, I want to be there. He then kills the last 2 walkers like a boss and moves back out onto the street. Silas's turn, he moves up and then kills 2 walkers in that central zone, reloads the Orcish crossbow, and then kills off 2 fatties. Love the Orcish crossbow. Baldric's next, he uses Inferno to kill a walker in the zone in front of him, bit of an underperformance, blasts again and kills off the next one. I want Nelly to get that objective. I really need to get her some experience points, so he just walks into the room to the south, searches it, finds a greatsword, fine, and then moves back out into the street. Wouldn't be the worst thing if I found some dragon bile and a torch at some point. Back to the zombies, and they continue to close in on the petitioners. Thankfully, no one's currently chewing on us, and there's no necromancers on the board, so I guess that's good. The first spawn gives us an extra runner activation. That would have been real bad if it happened last turn, but as it is, there's only 1 runner on the board. He does split, though, because of this activation. The next 2 spawn points each give us just 1 more fatty. That's an okay spawn round. Things might be looking up for the old Plogberg 4. Speaking of, Nelly takes her turn, moves with her free move action to the objective, takes it, another red. Kanta Slaus did leave me the speed spell though, which is kinda cool. That does finally put Nelly in the yelly, and she uses her last 3 actions to dash in front of the rest of the party. Silas is up next, takes 1 step forward, just staying out of reach of that abomination. Kills a single walker with his Orcish crossbow, reloads, and then kills 2 more. Samson's feeling pretty confident with that greatsword of his, takes 2 move actions to get into the thick of things, kills 1 walker with his first attack, but then kills the next 2 with his second. Baldric is next, moves up to Nelly's zone, hands her the greatsword, takes a short sword and the speed spell in return. He then moves up into Samson's zone, uses his free magic action to blow up the plague bearer in the south, and then uses speed to bring Nelly into his zone as well. I want to keep everyone together as much as possible. Sorry, Silas. Zombies continue to truck forward. These big maps can sure hold a lot of zombies. I have come pretty close to running out of regular walkers. I got up to 34 a round or 2 ago. 35 is the number they give you in the box, and after that, if you have to spawn more, they get extra activations. Anyway, first spawns, the first spawn zone gives us a double spawn, so over to the top right, we get another Necromancer, who shows up with a runner and 4 walkers. I was enjoying not having Necromancers on the table. The south gives us 2 more fatties, which is not that big of a problem. We do have monsters on all 4 sides, though. We have an abomination to the left, a walker and a runner up top, another runner to the right, and 2 fatties to the south. Over to the good guys, we're going to start with Nelly, who gets to use those 4 actions of hers that she just picked up. Free move action brings her into the zone with the runner, which she promptly kills. Okay, maybe that greatsword works a little bit better for her. She then moves again and then opens a door on her first try. Who is this? I don't know you. That gives us 2 fatties in the far room, and that's it for the monster spawn cards. I have to go and shuffle them up again, draw a new one, and we get a necromancer, of course. So the necromancer in the top right gets an extra move. Speaking of extra move, Nelly gets one more action. She moves into the room of the building she just opened. Baldric uses 3 actions to move into that same room, kills the 2 fatties with his free magic action, and then, why not? He searches, gets an ambush. Nice one, Baldric. So a zombie shows up in our space. That's okay, Samson's there as always to solve problems, moves 3 zones, and then squashes the zombie with his last action. Finally, Silas is tired of being left behind, and so spends all 4 actions to huddle with the rest of the group in this building. I'm sure it's safe here, we're fine. Zombies continue to move out, giving us a couple of splits. The first spawn gives us an abomination card, so he continues to just doggedly pursue the petitioners. Top right gives us a double spawn, so the necromancer spawn zone in that same zone gives us 1 fatty and 4 walkers, and in the south we get 3 more walkers. Back to the good guys, starting with Nelly. Free move action over to that objective. We take it. It's the blue objective! Bottom third, but we did it! We can finish this scenario. Kanta Slaus also gifts us with the torch, which is fine, I guess. Nelly then spends 2 more actions to move back out onto the street and execute that zombie waiting for her. Alright, we're moving like we have a purpose now. Samson moves 2 zones into the right. Still gotta avoid that abomination. Kills 1 zombie lurking there with his greatsword. That puts him into orange. I choose the +1 to hit melee skill. I think that might be useful with him swinging that greatsword. He tests it out on the 1 remaining zombie. Yeah, works good. Chops his head off. Baldric's next, moves out into the street, turns to the left and kills off that runner. Don't need him chasing us down. That puts him in the orange as well, which is great. He'll take free magic action. That sounds fun. Moves over to Samson, spends 2 more actions, happily killing 1 zombie each to the zone right above him, and then casts speed on Silas, moving him up. Yeah, Baldric can have 6 actions around now. It's nice. Silas is next, which means it's orcish crossbow time. Targets the zone 2 spaces away on the first shot, kills off 2 walkers, nice job, he reloads, and then kills the fatty and the necromancer. That's great. I removed the necromancer spawn zone because that's the direction I'm heading in. I've got 1 action left, so I can't reload and fire the orcish crossbow, but I do have the short bow in hand still, so I just go and pick off that 1 walker right in front of us. That puts Silas in orange, and I'll give him +1 free ranged action. Very sadly, however, Silas has run out of people around him to kill, so we've just got to chill for the remainder of our turn. Zombies continue to converge on the corner that I've tucked myself into. First spawn we get is an extra activation for the walkers. They're nice and danger close now. Top right gives us 2 runners, and then it's just the south. But we get a double spawn. So back up to the top left, we get 5 walkers and another double spawn. Oh, fantastic. Okay, back to the top right. We get a fatty and a necromancer. So now we got another necromancer spot in that same zone. He shows up with 3 fatties. That really went a long way to repopulating the board. We're going to start with Nelly. Nelly is mad. She kills the walker in her zone, takes her free move action, another move action, puts her into the zone with all the zombies right above us. Kills a runner and a walker. Great job, Nelly. That greatsword does work for you. That puts her in orange, and I see no reason not to give her the Bloodlust melee skill. She's got 1 more action, which she uses to chop down 2 more walkers. Nice job. Samson, unfortunately, is getting a little tired moving around the board wearing all this armor. Moves up to the zone with Nelly, manages to kill off 1 zombie, and then misses with the entirety of his second attack. Does eventually get his act together and kills off the last zombie with his last action. Baldric moves up to Samson and Nelly, uses a very nice Inferno action to kill off 3 walkers. Second one kills off the last one, moves into that zone, kills another walker off to the left, and then uses speed to move Silas up to his zone. Dead zombies and noise tokens everywhere. Nice job. Silas is up next, and he's going to shoot past that 1 fatty into the zone with all the necromancer's friends. First shot with the orcish crossbow kills off 2 fatties, goes and reloads, kills off 2 more fatties, nice work. Reloads again, free ranged action, kills off the 2 runners. The necromancer is left all alone, couldn't get rid of him, but you couldn't ask for anything more from Silas. He hit with every single attack. Zombie turn and everyone shuffles up, including that plague bearer who moves into the zone with Baldric and Silas. For spawns, we get 3 fatties in the top left. We get a double spawn in the top right, so over to the Necromancer zone in that same one. Get another double spawn and a fatty. So a fatty shows up in the top right. Go back down to the south. We get 5 walkers and an extra activation for the Abomination. These double spawns are just driving me crazy. We're going to start with Silas this round. He clubs the fatty to death with the end of his Orcish crossbow. Then he guns down the fatty that just arrived in the spawn zone up top. Moves to the left into the zone with a zombie, not worried about that guy at all. He casually reloads, shoots past him and the 3 zombies in the next zone to take out the zombie in front of the door. And now it's Nelly's turn. Nelly uses her new Bloodlust skill, which allows her to move 2 zones into a zone with a zombie and immediately do an attack action. She uses that to go into the zone with Silas and execute the zombie that's been hanging out with him. She then bloodlusts into the next zone with the 3 zombies, kills 1 on the charge, then she spends her next action to kill off the next 2. Just a whirlwind of death. She then uses her free move action to get in front of the door. And hey, why not? We're almost done, right? What could go wrong? She goes and opens the door, needing a 5+ and everything. This was what you would call a tactical error, because there are 5 rooms in that building that I just opened up, so that's 5 spawns. The first spawn we get is Necromancer, so the Necromancer hops forward into the zone with Baldric. We then spawn 2 more fatties, and then 5 more walkers, and then 4 more walkers. And I don't know how many walkers after that, but it's more than 4 because we have run out of walkers, and so all the walkers get an extra activation. The big problem being that the 4 walkers that we were able to spawn in that room right in front of Nelly surge out past the door and into her zone. And guess what? She is out of actions and in a lot of trouble. We've got 2 heroes left to try and salvage this situation. We're going to start with Baldric. Baldric's going to use his free magic action to blow up the Necromancer in his zone. I choose to remove the southern spawn zone. I'm going to leave the Necromancer zone in the top right. The reason being is that the southern spawn zone is a lot closer to where my guys are going to be. Then with my free spellcaster action, I can cast an enchantment, so I use speed to move Samson up. Baldric then moves 3 zones into Nelly's zone, just trying to get more hit points in that area, and I've got 1 more action. No melee weapons equipped, so I just go and throw an Inferno into that big room with the vault door and kill off 3 walkers. Samson's last up. Let's see what he can do about this whole thing. Moves 2 zones forward, spends his first action to chop away with that greatsword, kills off 1 zombie, but he does the business with his second action, kills off the remaining 3. Oh, nice work, Samson. Kinda needed that. Zombie's turn. A bunch of walkers pile into our zone. I erroneously give the Abomination an extra activation because I thought he'd need to split from the corner spot that he was at. Top left gives us 6 walkers, 2 runners show up in the top right, and the bottom zone gives us 4 more walkers. I was completely out. All the walkers get another activation. That means I've got 9 hits coming in on me. I take 1 hit on Nelly, which she does not manage to pass with her leather armor save. 2 hits have to go on Baldric, which leaves 6 more attacks onto Samson. Samson's at full wounds and he has a 3-up armor save, but that's still a little dicey. He rolls it out and he saves 4 of them, which will give him 2 wounds. Now I can go and re-roll that with the shield, but the thing is I don't dare. I have to re-roll all the dice, and if I end up with 3 wounds and that's it, Samson would be dead and the game would be lost. So I just gotta take it with Nelly, Samson, and Baldric all on 1 wound remaining. And I have an absolute pile of zombies in my zone. I'm going to need some really good dice this next round. Okay then, here we go. Make or break time for the petitioners. We're going to start with Baldric. First, I'm going to use my free spellcaster action to use speed to bring over Silas. See him? He's tucked in the back right corner. For his free magic action, he uses Inferno to blast 2 zombies in the zone to the left. And then he's going to equip the double short swords from the backpack and spend his next 3 actions attacking the zone. And he does okay. He kills off 4 walkers, which is not bad, but there's a lot more zombies to go through. Next is Samson, and I'm thinking he can pull this around. His first attack kills off 2 zombies. His second attack hits with all 3, kills off 3, but then his third he misses completely, and his last only kills 1, an extremely average round, killing off 6 zombies. Nelly's up next. Starts off well, kills off 2 zombies with that greatsword of hers, then misses completely, 0. But then she really starts putting on the gas, kills 2 with her 3rd attack, kills 2 more with her 4th. That helps a lot. Finally, it's Silas swinging with the butt end of the orcish crossbow. 1st attack kills 1 walker, 2nd kills another, 3rd one does great, kills the last 2, clearing the zone. Immediate danger is over. Finally gets to fire with the orcish crossbow into the zone on the left, killing off 1 more walker. Zombie turn and 5 more walkers pile into our zone. The rest of the bad guys move up and we spawn 2 runners in the top left, 2 fatties in the top right, and 3 more fatties in that 2nd spawn zone in the top right. Now we're running low on the brutes. But I think we're starting to see daylight. We're going to start with Samson this next round. First, he's going to kill off all 5 walkers, continues to be a boss. Then he's going to activate a trade with Baldric so he can bring up his spells and put the short swords back in his backpack. Baldric's up next. He uses his first action to cast Inferno into the room, but only manages to kill off 1 fatty. 2nd Inferno polishes off the 2nd one, though. He then trades with Nelly to bring up her hammer and his short sword so we can try and open the door. Moves into the big room, casts Speed to bring Samson into the same room, get everyone off the street. Takes a swing at the door, fails to open it, and I think I have miscounted his actions and gave him an extra strike at the door, allowing him to open it. It doesn't really matter. The next action is going to be Nelly. She's just going to move into the vault. She would have had all the time in the world to successfully open it, so the miscounting doesn't really matter. Silas goes and shoots down 2 of the fatties in the zone with the Abomination for his first free ranged action, and then goes into the vault with Nelly. Halfway there, zombies move up and there's a lot less of them on the table. We spawn 6 walkers in the top left, and then we get a double spawn for the first spawn zone in the top right. So going on to the 2nd one, we get a necromancer, 4 walkers, and an activation all runners. So 2 runners end up in the zone with Baldric and Samson. That's no concern for Samson. He kills him off with his first action and then moves down into the vault. Baldric uses the enchantment Speed on himself, and so he gets himself down into the vault. And then he's got 4 actions left to start handing out gifts, and I'm going to hand pieces of equipment to everyone in the group with all of Baldric's actions, as well as all of the actions of Nelly and Silas. So everyone's going to get 3 pieces of equipment, which I won't bother to get into. Zombie turn, and they continue to close into Kanta Slaus' workshop. 2 runners end up in the big room. For spawns, top left gives the Necromancer another activation. In the top right, we end up with 3 walkers, 2 runners, and 5 walkers. There's 3 spawn zones there now, thanks to that Necromancer. New turn, we're going to start out with Samson. He's going to hand out presents for all 4 of his actions. Now, all of my guys have spent 4 actions in this vault. We just need 2 each. Nelly hears people moving around upstairs, so she uses her first action to Bloodlust up to the runners and kills both of them with a new hammer plus dagger combo that she got from Kanta Slaus. Merry Christmas to her. She uses her free move action to move back into the vault, gives a torch to Samson, and then spends 2 more actions to get the full 6. Baldric goes up to 6 as well when he grabs 2 more gifts. He has ended up with Dragon Bile in hand as well as the speed spell, so he's going to use his free spellcaster action to move into the big room, lob the Dragon Bile at the Abomination's feet, and then move back down into the vault. I need to get rid of this Abomination, because if it manages to get an extra activation in this next turn, he'll end up in the zone with me, and then I can't hand out any more presents. And I also can't get rid of him, because I can't throw Dragon Bile into my own zone. I'll all die, and otherwise I'll just have to go chasing back and forth through the next 2 rooms, and it'll be a big problem. So I need to get rid of him here. Silas activates next. He's going to trade for the torch, put that in hand, move into the big room, toss it over to the Abomination, roast him, take care of that problem that's been chasing me almost this entire game. Good riddance. Moves back down into the vault. The zombies are up. Everyone moves towards the vault again. We spawn 3 runners in the top left. In the top right with that triple spawn zone, we get 4 walkers. We get an extra fatty activation, which means that 3 fatties storm into the big room above the vault. And we get a double spawn, so back to the top left. Necromancer gets an extra turn, and a double spawn back over to the top right again. 2 more fatties and 2 more runners. So many dead guys after Kanta Slaus' gifts. But it's too late. Samson and Silas both spend the required 2 actions they need to bring everybody up to 6 actions, handing out gifts in Kanta Slaus' workshop. Christmas is saved. Oh my gosh. That was fairly brutal, and a medium-level game as well. Thought I started getting a little overconfident with some of these games. I had had some good wins under my belt, and this was a rough one. We're definitely hurt. I think if I had been playing the scenario with more of the expansions, more of those vault weapons, it would have been a little easier. Also, obviously, if I had managed to find that blue objective a little bit sooner, that could have helped. But I'm proud of the Plagsburg Petitioners. It was a tough game, and we pulled it out. We continued to survive to go on to the next mission, whatever that happens to be. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions, observations, or concerns, go ahead and leave them in the comment section below. I'll see you on the next one.